I'm Haley B. Miller, and this is Ohio Politics Explained, a podcast where you give us 15 minutes and we give you all the news you need to sound smart and impress your friends. Welcome to another episode of Ohio Politics Explained. Today, we'll dig into redistricting, because yes, it's back, the latest in a lawsuit over school choice, and how the House voted on DeWine's budget vetoes. With me today is Anthony Shoemaker.
Hi, Haley. How are you?
Great. Before we get going, as always, if you like OAP and find it useful, we'd appreciate you leaving a review or rating on Apple Podcasts. So let's kick off with redistricting. Ohio lawmakers are getting ready to draw a new congressional map. Why? The current map wasn't approved on a bipartisan basis, which means it could only stay in place for 4 years. We all remember the chaos of redistricting a few years ago. Is the landscape any different this time?
Well, Republicans have a 6-1 advantage on the Supreme Court now. Remember all the fighting over redistricting with former Chief Justice Maureen O'Connor. There's supermajorities in the Ohio legislature, which they've already had. And, redrawing the districts in Ohio could have a big role in who controls Congress, because there's only a less than 10-seat majority for Republicans.
Right. And we're among only a few states doing redistricting this year, I think, because it is kind of an oddball time to be doing it. It usually coincides with the census.
Yeah, I think Texas is possibly doing it. And there was some story the other day saying, if Texas added Republican seats, that California was threatening to add Democratic seats. So, Ohio could play a key role with every seat matters this cycle.
Yeah, and right now we have 10 Republicans and 5 Democrats representing Ohio in Congress. 2 of those Democrats are in really competitive seats, and I have to think they're going to be targets 1 and 2 for Republicans redrawing the maps. That's Representative Marcy Kaptur up in Toledo. She's the longest serving woman in Congress. And then Congresswoman Amelia Sykes in the Akron area. I think there are pretty easy ways if you're a Republican trying to add more Republican seats to Ohio. I think those districts would be the easiest to sort of make more difficult for the incumbents.
Yeah, I mean, Marcy Kaptur's district is already very Republican. She eked out a win last time against Derek Marin. They could make that district even more Republican, making it harder for her next year.
Yeah, and honestly, there was a Libertarian candidate who joined the fray in that race last year, and I think if that hadn't happened, she could have lost her seat. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. There's already a primary underway on the Republican side for that seat. A current and former state lawmaker are running. So, we'll see who her opponent is. I think regardless, that person's going to have a lot of support from all the big national Republican groups.
Yeah, I mean, she'll be a big target, and Sykes as well. I mean, there's some talk that they could possibly go after Greg Landsman down in the Cincinnati area, but that's a little bit of a tougher district.
Yeah, and it does seem like that area has gotten pretty Democratic, especially compared to how it used to be. I think they would have to do some interesting shuffling to make life harder for him. Yeah,
and actually for Democrats right now, the current map is one of the best that they've had in a long time. I mean, they've got 5 seats right now. You have 3 African-American women in Congress from Ohio for the first time in history. So some Democrats may want to just try to keep the map as close to where it is, if possible.
Right. And so the final deadline for the new map is November 30th. There are a series of deadlines before that. First, lawmakers get a chance to do a map, then the redistricting commission, then it goes back to lawmakers. It'll be interesting to see if Republicans make any attempt to negotiate with Democrats, or if they're just going to steamroll the process, knowing that they have a Supreme Court, as you said, that is going to be more friendly to them.
Yeah, they hold all the cards, really.
Let's pivot to budget vetoes. The House met this week to override some of DeWine's property tax vetoes. Republicans succeeded on one front. They reinstated a proposal to eliminate certain types of levies, which limits the options for schools and local governments. But House Speaker Matt Huffman wanted to override 2 other vetoes, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of calls from the public for property tax reform. The issue that they were able to get the override on will make it harder for like new levies to pass, but doesn't really cut property taxes.
Yeah, they have cast it as kind of a transparency thing. These two types of levies, replacement and emergency levies, Republicans say that these are confusing for voters and kind of mislead people about to what extent their tax bills may change. But to your point, and this is something a lot of Democrats said, this is not going to help people who are getting their property tax bills in January necessarily.
Yeah, and but tax levies are always confusing for voters because you have new levies, emergency levies, additional levies. So trying to make it more transparent on the front end does sound like a good idea, but the devil's in the details on this.
Yeah, for sure. And in addition to the vetoes, Republicans in the legislature were pretty mad about that. They're also not super happy about another thing DeWine did, which is create this property tax working group to study the issue basically and come up with policy recommendations by September. The legislature actually did this for the past couple of years and issued recommendations last year. So Huffman and some of these other GOP leaders are saying, like, why are we doing this again?
Yeah, they kind of feel like the time for working groups is over, and that lawmakers spoke. I mean, it's possible that they'll come back in the fall and take up these other issues, override these other issues that DeWine vetoed.
Our final topic today is a lawsuit over school vouchers. Quick reminder, Ohio expanded its school choice program, known as EdChoice, to include all families regardless of income. Public schools sued, and a Franklin County judge said this is unconstitutional. Attorney General Dave Yost said he's going to appeal that decision. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I mean, Yost is supporting this appeal, and Huffman and groups like the Center for Christian Virtue that are big backers of EdChoice. There's going to be a big push to override this.
And public schools have been pretty frustrated with the expansion of this, in part because they say that it takes money away from them, but also because EdChoice was kind of advertised as a way to help low-income students get into these private schools. So when it's open to everyone, this lawsuit has made the argument that you're creating two different school systems when the state has an obligation to fund its public schools.
Yeah, and there's been a dramatic increase in the number of families taking advantage of this. Like 23,000 students were receiving those vouchers in the 2022 school year. Now it's like around 80,000. I mean, that's a pretty big increase in a short amount of time.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we've seen the legislature try to do other things to help this program. And they actually even tried to include these savings accounts for non-chartered public school students in the state budget. But DeWine vetoed that part of the budget because he was like Bishop Sycamore. Basically, a lot of these schools are not well regulated, and he didn't think they should be getting state money.
And there's a lot of money at stake. I mean, the story you guys did on this said by 2027, the state's projected to spend $1.25 billion on vouchers.
That is a lot.
It's not chump change.
And one more thing before you go. Speaking of lawsuits, the Ohio Supreme Court said it will hear a case over Ohio's ban on gender-affirming care for minors. This comes after the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a similar ban in Tennessee. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about when that decision comes down.